Hey guys, welcome to the Stars and Shadows special live stream. It's the launch. We're very excited about this day. I'm here with myself, Saskia, community manager of Iceberg, and with
Honey, my name is Honey. I'm the new intern of Iceberg, so it's really exciting for me. It's my very first time streaming, so wish me luck.
very exciting for a very exciting day. She was pretty nervous, but yeah, she's doing good. Give her some love. So it's an all-girl crew today. No news. And so what are we going to do today? Of course, it's the launch, so we're going to watch some gameplay. We're going to check out the new trailer, and of course announce the winners of the contest. So I hope you guys stick around. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them.
Yes. Well,
we have a very special guest in our stream today.
Because we have Sven Olsen, the developer of Stars in Shadow, with us.
Yes.
So let's put Sven on the screen as well.
Yeah. So hey Sven, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
So how are you feeling today?
Nervous.
Nervous, yeah, I can imagine. So, and then you know how the whole team is doing, the Ashtar team? How are you guys all feeling about today?
There's just two of us, and Jim's had excitement with broken computers, and I, have excitement with late-breaking bugs. We have some very dedicated testers who have been giving us, a very thorough set of last-minute bug reports, so plenty of things to be excited about.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, I also have a question for you, Sven, because I've heard that you and artist Jim Francis are a really great team. So we were curious because how did you come to work with him?
I mean, Jim, also known as Ariok, has been he's been a real member of the strategy gaming community for quite some time. I knew of him back when I was in college in like 2000 and something, because he was a big commenter on Master of Orion and Homeworld, which were games that we were both playing at the time.
Right.
He had a webcomic up, so he was a figure in the fan community that I was aware of, and he did some really cool art, and so I knew that I wanted to get someone with that art style when I started working on the game. I just shot him an email and said, can you draw me some spaceships? I need spaceships for a space game that I'm making. And he said, sure. And that was almost 10 years ago now that I sent him that first email. So
wow, that's a long time.
There's a lot of email conversations that come out of that. A lot of talk about, just how we're going to build the races and what sort of game it's going to be. And Jim is very opinionated, so
he knows what he wants, but that's good.
How it was all going to work. And eventually, it became fairly clear that he was no longer just an artist. He was really a team project.
Ah, great
That's
story.
Awesome. How did you guys come up for those ideas for these various races that you have in the game? What is your inspiration for them?
I mean, in some ways it's really very easy, because you know that there are certain archetypes that you want to have in the game, right? We knew that we wanted, you need a science race, you need a merchant race, you need an antagonist, right? You need someone who can credibly play the role of bad guy. So there's a few pieces like that you're playing with, and then we're also both big fans of history. So I knew that I really wanted a race that was like the ancient Romans. I knew I wanted a race that was like the ancient Carthaginians. I knew I wanted Vikings and so on. So you start stealing from history, you start playing with the basic archetypes, and then Jim did a whole bunch of concepts, and we mixed and matched until, you put, he did the seahorse concept, for example. He said, I haven't seen this.
The feedy.
Yeah, well, that looks awesome. I wonder who they should be. And we say, well, we need an economic race. Okay, I guess the feedy are the economic race.
They're the guys for the job.
Yeah, and so you put the pieces together, and it was a fun project. It was a lot of concepts back and forth, and I think it came out pretty well. We got a pretty good team in terms of the races that we've got in our galaxy.
Yeah, I agree. It's lovely.
Well, I also have another question for you because you started working on the game Stars in Shadow while you were still in college. So that was back in 2002. So that's like 14 years ago. We were wondering, has the game now became exactly yeah, as you want it to be?
Um, exactly as I want it to be. I mean, what you think it's going to be in a big project like this changes over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started in college, I had all these idealistic ideas about, well, I was going to do these incredible things with artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. And then you start really working on it, and you start thinking about, well, what makes it really work as a game? And you realize that actually powerful artificial intelligence in some ways is a bad thing. That the game is more fun if there are ways in which the characters you're interacting with are predictable. So it changes over time. I would say that if me of 15 years ago saw the game now, he would probably be impressed. In some ways, it's a lot better than I ever imagined it would be. That's largely due to the influence of Jim Francis, who has really come in and elevated the art well beyond what I thought we were. I imagined, doodles and very rough and very, very indie, but for two people, this looks like this is pretty polished.
Yeah.
So, in some ways it's quite different than I had imagined. In some ways it's better. And in some ways there's, still things that need to be done. So
yeah, there's always stuff you don't know from the start that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's a pretty long project. 14 years is a long time.
Well, I mean, that's overstating things. Much of that time I was in school. I was working on research projects. But it's been now a good 6 years where this has been nominally the main thing I've been doing. So it's long. It's not quite more than a decade, but it's long.
So Sven, I've got the questions of questions for you. The question of questions, actually. So, and it's an interesting one, and I know you have a lot to say about it. I think that's what I heard from Bart. What makes Stars in Shadow different from all the other 4X titles that are on the market?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of answering that question, but the easy answer is we're doing this very old school turn-based tactical combat system on top of a turn-based strategy game. So it's we're avoiding the general trend towards these streamlined real-time 3D combat engines, which is very much the general trend. I obviously really like the older turn-based tactical stuff, and so that's the big easy difference. But when you spent 6 years making a game, what you realize is that it's not so much the feature list that is what makes it a good game or not. It's all the endless little things. It's how complete is the world building. It's how polished is the UI. It's is the balance actually right, and what's the flow of gameplay really like when you're into it. And all that kind of stuff. We spent a lot of time refining. And when you spend a lot of time refining something like that, the game takes on its own character. So it's, I think that even if I had made the same game, or set out to make the same game, just making small little different choices early on, it would be a very different thing. It would be a sort of very different story. It would have a different character if I were to do it all again. It's almost like writing a novel. You get settings and your characters and your everything else, and they play out well or not.
Right. Yeah. Oh, great. I mean, we're all very excited. So that's interviewing you for now. We're gonna leave you alone for a bit. We're gonna see maybe if there are some questions in the chat. Let's see. Gentle Art is saying, great game, would be nice if it will have a multiplayer feature in the future.
That's a good question.
Do you have something to say to Gentle Art about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's two answers to that question. The first, and the first one is that our goal right now as developers is very much to focus on the single player experience. All the design we're doing, all the balance we're doing, all the gameplay stuff we're concerned about is all focused exclusively on how do we make this the best game that we can for a single player. That said, I did really enjoy playing multiplayer Sword of the Stars back in the day, and the engine that I've created is designed to allow an eventual multiplayer expansion. So when I'm testing the game, I'm actually testing it by playing against myself, hot seat. I play as a couple.
Oh, really?
Back and forth, and I have battles between them, and it all works more or less. So the features are there, the hooks are there. We need to implement all the networking packages and everything. So right. it's work. It would be a real expansion. But if there's, I mean, if we do well, I think
who knows what will in the future
with a multiplayer expansion. It's on the list.
Right. Well, that's cool to hear, guys. Yeah. All right, so I guess that's it for the chat questions for now. Okay. So we're going to move on.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on to the gameplay with our lovely producer, Bart. Guys, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, so we'll answer them to you or for you after the gameplay. But first, before we switch over to Bart, let's check out the trailer.
The trailer. Enjoy, guys. Have fun. We'll see you later. This will be that moment that people go like, we have technical problems, technical difficulties. They're going to be like holding the ears. Yes. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, a few minutes more waiting, huh? What is that? Let's see, who have we got here? Hello, Diamond, welcome. And hey, BitGamerX, we've seen you on Twitter. My awkward face is still cute, well, thank you. Yeah, we need to entertain you guys while waiting. Alright, yeah, okay, so Bart fixed it, let's go.
Alright, hello and welcome on behalf of myself as well. I'm Bart and I'm the producer here at Iceberg Interactive, and I'm going to take you through some gameplay. Please excuse me for the short hiccup with the trailer there, that's all on me. Hopefully after this things will run smoothly. If you have any feedback about the stream itself or the quality, please let me know. and I'll try and do something about it. So with that said, we're gonna just jump into a game here, and we're gonna take you through some of the opening moves of the game, show you some of the customizations that you can actually already do. Of course, there's more planned for early access, and in the meantime, we'll just be chatting with Sven as well about the game, his design, and he is very free to interrupt me when I make any mistakes or comment on my overall strategy. So you're invited to do so, Sven.
Okay.
We're here in the main menu. We can see the updates to the right. If you are, if you're purchasing the game, keep a close eye on that. All the new updates will highlight there. We also have a quick start guide prepared for you in order to help you get started a bit, so you can use that URL from within the game. So that's a quite nifty tool, as it were, to help you get started. So we're gonna go and start a new game, and already we can see some of the factions we can select. So we got the Ashdar Colonials, the Gramic Empire, the Orthan Conference, and the Ural Kaganet. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Sven?
You'd have to ask Jim. He's our expert.
And of course we have Humanity. You will also notice we got two more factions at the bottom, the Fidi, so the Seahorses, and the Ashdar Imperials, and they will become available later on when Ashdar Games has managed to fully implement all the racial features and the unique part. But the AI can use them already, so you can already have them populate the map, as it were. So each race in Stars and Shadow is very much has its own playing style. Sven told us a bit about the different feel of each race already, and that's all reflected in the way the race operates. So all have specific bonuses, penalties, and as well as several unique technologies. So for example, when we have a look at the Gramic Empire, we can see they have a specific type of values, or a colonist production. So the resources a Gramic colonist produces are different from, say, an Ashdar colonist. You can compare these and already look a bit if see something matches your desired playing style. If you're a science-heavy race, perhaps the Orthan would be are a good choice if you want to have this science-heavy playthrough. If you want to go on slave runs, then by all means they'll go for the Gramic Empire with their raiders. They're a great way to play, very interesting. And if you want to go fully, to outproduce pretty much anyone else, the Ashdar Colonials are a great way to start. And that's actually what we'll be doing, I think, here. We're going to start as the Ashdar Colonials, because one of the cool things they have, and that I really like, is they have the escort carriers. So they have very early access to carriers, and I just like sending fighters out, basically. So having done that, we can start customizing our game, and here we can set our difficulty. So there are 3 difficulties to choose from at the moment. We can modify the advanced faction settings, so we can choose, actually we can change our type of race we wanted here, but we can also choose our opponents and add or remove some. And of course we can set the playfield size. So there are 3 sizes here, and there we can also set, enter our own number of stars if we have a specific lucky number. So if I want to have a system with 63 stars, or 65, 63, then I can do that. So the average is 50, and Sven, how long does it take about to finish an average game?
It depends how fast you're playing and how many times you played through. If you're me, about 3.5 hours. If you're someone playing for the first time, it's probably going to take you 8 or 9. So it very much depends who's playing. For you, Bart, I don't know. You played a lot now, haven't you? You've been doing a lot of beta testing.
I've been playing quite a bit, yeah, and it was definitely a joy to do. So I was very happy to be able to play this and to say, okay, this is my work. I'm getting paid for this. So I was definitely happy doing that. But yeah, I mean, it will, if you get into the systems a bit and you play a bit of smaller game, you can actually finish a game in one evening should you want it. Of course, if you want those really long epic games, you can turn up the scale significantly and take it longer. But overall, I think this game tends to be a bit more compact, as it were, than some of the other 4X games out there. So we just jumped into our game. We have our starships ready. We're being informed by Commander Thori, and he is giving us a welcome message and telling us what we can do. So we have one planet over here in the system of Rastaban, and This is our planet. Nice. We have 6 million ash stars right there, ash star colonials. And we have 3 ships at our disposal. So we got a transport ship, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later on. We got a colony ship, which, like the name suggests, is used to colonize different or new planets. And we have a scout cruiser. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select our scout cruiser, highlighting it, and we're going to send it out to a new system. So we can see that we are surrounded by a number of stars. Right-clicking brings up the range of this particular ship, and we can choose what star we want to visit. So to our left we have a yellow star, a G-type star, and that has excellent odds of containing valuable colony worlds, so that might be a very good first pick. The reason I'm sending out my scout ship and not, for example, my colony ship is that I don't know what I'm going to encounter there. There could be hostiles, there could be pirates, whatever, and a scout ship has a good chance to actually escape and retreat, go back to safety, but a colony ship is not nearly as fast as a scout ship and will most likely get destroyed in the process, and especially in early game, a colony ship is a very valuable asset. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my research for the coming turns. So there are different research possibilities, and I'm also telling Saskia and Honey here, if you need to interrupt me for any questions coming from the audience, just by all means do so.
Affirmative, sir.
And we need to set our research over here. So let's have a look at the research menu. So we can see at the bottom part, we see the researches or the technologies we've already unlocked. And at the top part, we have technologies still to unlock. Now, more technologies will start filling in here as we, progress through the tech tree. And you can get a clear overview of all technologies within a specific category by clicking any one of these buttons. So if I want to know all technologies related to physics, I click the physics icon and I can get a full breakdown of all technologies that are dependent on physics. So that's a great way to keep some overview and to have a look. In this case, one of the things I'm going to prioritize here is small craft, and small craft gives you access to interceptors and basically to your first fighters, and it will lead to escort carriers, and those are the ones that are unique to the ash stars, and I want to get access to them as quickly as possible.
So Bart, have you found the Q command yet? Are you aware that that's in there?
I don't think I am. The Q command. Oh, definitely. Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood you. So you can definitely queue up research. If I select the escort carrier over here, the Q research button will appear, and I can queue up, and it will automatically go to the next research. Is that what you meant, Sven?
That's what I meant. And there's a hidden feature there, which is that if you're going really deep in the research tree, there are some techs that you can unlock in multiple different ways. And if you hit Q multiple times, it will cycle through all the different orders in which you might be able to make it to that particular tech. Yeah, there's hidden functionality in this.
That's even more advanced than I was aware of. That's definitely great for those who really like to plan out their research. So that's definitely a good tip that you give there. So actually, I'm gonna keep my escort carriers queued here, and they're gonna be working on that. So Sven, do you advise sending out your supply ship and colony ship out in the first couple of turns, or?
No. I mean, the supply ship, I think you generally want to start trading with, because even if you, there's a couple things. You can get tricky with the supply ship if you either send it to the trade pool so that it'll be ready for you when you get a new colony and you're able to start either moving around food or trading for money, depending on what sort of a world you found. Or if you want to be really tricky, if you find a nice world, you can load up the transport ship with some of your colonists. So instead of having a settlement that starts at 1 population, it can start at 2, and that can give you a little advantage in terms of just getting your economy moving on your first colony world. But of course, you have to have a nice, productive world all queued up before you send out that much in terms of your starting resources. You don't want 20% of your population to die from pirates in the first 2 minutes of the game. That would be bad.
That's an excellent point, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the going to save route, and I'm going to send it to start trading. So if I send a supply ship to start trading, it will start generating some money for me, but it will also be available if needed to transport food between colonies. So should I find a colony that can't really support itself food-wise, especially initially before I manage to build some farms, they will rely on food imports essentially. So that's a good reason to keep building supply ships every now and then.
Yeah, and your
Sorry,
ash jars that are good. Oops.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
we can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, because we have a lot of questions coming in. So I would like to ask the first one. It's from Obscured, and it's: are there any future plans for Steam Workshop?
Another very good question. I mean, modding is something that's really quite important to me as a developer. I spent a lot of time as a hobbyist modding other people's games, and Jim Francis has a whole big site on modding of Homeworld, and so we're both certainly excited about that. And the game, you know, if you know Lua scripting, you can just go right into our scripts, and there's all sorts of stuff there to look at. We have some documentation for how to get into modding on the website that I tend to link to anyone whenever they show interest. But to do really good Steamworks integration would be a bigger project, and I don't think we're going to have time for it before the release. I think it'll probably be a DLC of some sort, assuming there is interest in the modding community.
All right, thank you for answering that, Sven. I've got another one from Prodos. He's asking, what are the requirements for the research tags, and what resources and where can we get them?
The resource tags. Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, the research tags, technology, tech.
Oh, right. So by requirements, do you mean like a full list of all the all the different prerequisites that you need to get everything? So the full graph of what the...
I think he's asking whether or not there's actually a limit to amount of tags you can unlock. Or is there the possibility to unlock all the tags in a single playthrough?
Formally, I think the answer is there are right now a few race-locked techs that you can only get if you're a member of a certain race. Right now, there are ways of unlocking some of the race-locked techs. So just as an example, the Gremac have techs that are related both to their special weapon, which is the Viper torpedo, which is a unique weapon that they get early on, and they have techs that are related to slave taking. So they've got a slave collar tech that once you've got it, you can start enslaving population and then sacrificing them to build buildings faster and all sorts of other terrible things. And those two techs, it's possible to gain as other races. So if you're fighting against the Gremac and you manage to capture one of their ships, you'll be able to reverse engineer it, assuming you have appropriate technology and assuming you get a little lucky, and you can get the Viper energy torpedoes and start mounting those on your own ships. If you trade with the Gremac Marauders, who are underhanded collection of pirates who will sell you slaves, that unlocks the ability to research slave-taking technology yourself. And so if you want to go that route, you can do so even as a non-Gremac race, but you don't start with those technologies. Yeah, I guess the very short answer is that the tech tree does have the capacity to evolve in-game, and what's possible changes as you take certain in-game actions. Theoretically, right now, I think it probably is possible to get absolutely everything if you captured all the other ships and so on and so forth. But it would be quite the project, and I don't really expect anyone to do it.
All right, thank you for answering. Just a final one until I'll leave you guys alone again. What are the victory conditions of Stars and Shadow?
Another very good question. So the victory condition that, if you look at our EA list, we've just done a post of all the features that we're planning to get done over EA and when-ish we're planning to have them done. The very top of that list is a Galactic Council victory condition, which is the idea that you know, if you and your friends or the people who you have sufficiently intimidated as a group control enough of the galaxy, then you're declared the winners. So you don't actually need to conquer everyone to win. In the build that's up right now, you do need to conquer everyone to win, which I, as a designer, think is not correct, because you hit a certain point and the game is really over. So the victory conditions soon, but not now, will be just a basic conquest win and a Galactic Council win. We have plans for doing some quest-based ways of winning the game as well. So there's all sorts of interesting things to discover in the galaxy, and some of them may well lead to science projects or other sorts of quests that would give you a different way of winning the game. But that's not implemented yet, and I perhaps should not say too much about the details of our plans. I'm not sure how many of those sorts of quest-based wins will be present in the release, but it's certainly something that we really want to explore in possible post-release content.
All right, thanks, Sven, for answering. I'm gonna get you back to Bart because I see people are starving.
Yes, back to the game. So, while Sven was explaining about the game, I actually colonized my first planet, which had some native life on it, and
oh, who'd you get?
We got the Pell. So I think
the Pell are cool.
They came in a recent update, because I've not seen them often, and it looks like they are a race that is pretty useless except for technology.
Yes, but very useful for technology. They have twice as much tech production as anyone else. And they take no food, so they can't starve because they're photosynthetic.
And unfortunately, despite the fact that they can't starve, we did have some people starving because we had a lack of food at our home planet, actually, for a single turn. 250,000 colonists died, but of course it was for the greater good. And in the meantime, we've upgraded our food production, so we should be ready to grow more. And of course, we've started constructing on our farm and our first planet as well, so that's going quite swell. Although, is it possible, Sven, to actually, once you colonize a planet with natives living there, to actually relocate those natives?
If they're not Pell. So it depends. There are some races, a lot of native races, that are happy enough to move around your empire, but there are others that, for one reason or another, can't. For example, there's a race of eco-terrorist insurgents on one of the special worlds in the game called the Gaiads, and they will not leave Gaia under any circumstances. The Pell also are rooted to the ground because they're plants and cannot be transplanted. I had an argument about this with Jim, whether or not that was really appropriate. Is it really impossible for our space race to transplant plant people? But apparently it is. Right now, the rule with the Pell is they can't be moved. They're really a perk that's unique to that particular planet. So it varies.
And actually, to our south, we found a planet as well with some natives who appear to be rather stupid, according to the scientist telling me about them. They are a bit like ogre-looking race, very big and very strong.
You found the lumps.
Yes, we did. So we actually have the option of colonizing their world and using them for ourselves. As we need to start colonizing anyway to expand our borders, so we can also explore further out.
Yes, and they've named their planet. Their planet has dirt. Yeah, that is the Lummex homeworld.
And we also found, I should say, Sven, I put the races, like the natives, to the abundant setting. So there were plenty to find here and plenty to show off. Because we also found like a hive world with a native race on it. And they are also
scavengers.
Yes, and they could also be a good option for our third colony. So perhaps the Twitch chat could weigh in here if we should go for the ogres, or sorry, Sven, what did you call them?
Lummox.
The lummox, or for the scavengers. So if you guys could drop your preferences here in the chat, we're gonna base our choice on that. And in the meantime, I'm going to queue up a bit more transports, because there's a fairly good chance that both for the scavenger world and for the lummox world we won't have a decent enough food production initially, since they're arid and hive worlds, both with low fertility ratings. In the meantime, Sven, does it is the type of faction or the race you play, does it also have effect on what planets you can colonize?
Yes, yes, it does. There's a lot of I mean, this was something that I really liked about the old Master Orion 2, was that when you really got into the guts of how that game worked, you realized that to really make good use of the galaxy, what you needed to do was find a lot of different kinds of races. You needed one that lived underground, you needed one that lived in the water, and mix and match them on your colonies, so you could get hugely high production. And I had way more fun than really is justifiable by the mechanic, just moving around little aliens from one planet to another to try and make good use of my biomes. So Stars and Shadow has that same sort of stuff, but we've dug much deeper into it. There's an aquatic race, the Fidi. There's a couple of aquatic native races, and they do well on water planets. They do not do well on arid, waterless planets. Then there's also the Orson, who are chemosynthetic. So they're deep sea creatures that live sort of in a world like Europa, with all of their energy coming from these hydrothermal vents, and so they have radically different habitat preferences than anyone else. So if you're playing as Orson, the worlds that are prime worlds for you are very different than the worlds that are prime worlds for anyone else. And then you can start to mix and match. So if you get certain kinds of island worlds that have both shallow water and the deep vents, you can get big population boosts by having a combination of Orson and Fidi. The Gremak are an amphibious race, so they do pretty well in swamps, and you can add Gremak to just about any Earth-like world, and you'll increase your population cap a bit because they'll be able to make better use of either the water or the land, depending on who's already there. So basically, there's a lot of good reasons to move population around in your galaxy and try and mix and match. Try and put the best sort of population on whatever planets you've got. And now that we've got almost 20 different races in the game, as of the latest patch, most of which, or a lot of which, won't be available in any particular playthrough. There's a lot of replay value, I think, there in terms of trying to figure out what sorts of empires you can really build.
Alright, so yeah, thanks for that little explanation. We're going to try actually and do some of that ourselves in a bit as well. We already have a couple of planets that have multiple type of life forms on them, but there's definitely more we can do, although we learned already that we can't actually move the Pel, but I think the Lummox, we should actually be able to move them over. Let's see what kind of thing they bring. So actually they produce not a whole lot by default, but according to the description over here, they excel at farming practices once they actually taught how to farm. So hopefully when we get them, we can use them to farm for us.
I should have changed the lummox so that they were able to farm on dirt, because right now they can't farm on an arid world. You'll have to move them to one of your garden worlds to get the farming bonus.
All right, so then that's what we're going to be doing.
So if you move them to Pell or Rostaban too, they should become much more useful.
So we can actually start doing that because we have some of our ships to spare, some of our transport ships. So I can actually click the button over in the left planetary report panel, and I'm going to select the population size, and the amount of population that you can move in one go is actually based on the amount of spare transports you have. So some are busy with food, but the ones that are spare, I can use them to transport population. So I can hit move, and then I can then select the planet where I want them to go to. So I want to move some of those to Restaban, and it is going to take a couple of turns to get there. But we can see a ship being spawned over here, taken from our supply ship pool, and it's flying to Restaban, and it will arrive there in about 3 turns. And we actually have a metal shortage coming up, so because I started producing a bit of a defense force, I got my first destroyer and my second one underway, but we are out of metal, so it's going to take a bit longer. That's nothing too bad though, because we don't really need it in a hurry right now. I just like to have a couple of those should I encounter some pirates or some slave traders. And talking about
encountered some pirates.
Yes, exactly. We found a couple. They got 3 destroyers around the world of Mira. Now, it is not really an interesting world for me at this point because I cannot yet colonize that specific planet, and the shovel here indicates also it's exhausted of natural resources. It is a warm, inhospitable planet that doesn't do a whole lot for me. So for now, I'm happy to just ignore the pirates there. As long, of course, as they do the same.
Yeah, which they shouldn't in later builds, but right now the pirates are fairly passive. The only one you need to worry about right now for raids are the marauders, who will send out raiding parties from their homeworld. But fortunately, you don't seem to have any marauders around you.
Not yet, no. That's quite lucky actually, because I'm not really well equipped to fight them off with only one starting tac destroyer. No, I don't want you to build a factory, so that's actually quite interesting. So I was just hitting end turn while one of my planets was not doing anything, and then automatically the game will start suggesting something. If you don't do anything, it will start constructing this or start contributing to research or whatever. In this case, actually, I want them to build a mine because I really need to increase my mining production. Mines are relatively quick to build, so that's a good thing. So it should take only 9 turns for this one to finish, and that will help out. And in the meantime, our transport was a success, so we actually have some lummox now on our home planet, and they are...
Are they farming?
They are farming. They are producing 1 food per colonist, whereas our colonists, our native colonists, I should say, only produce half food per colonist. So we get a nice bit of extra food production.
So I'm seeing some gossip in Twitch chat about racial politics and so on. You and there's more to be done there. Right now there's some stuff going on with the morale system, so that if you have races that don't like each other on the same planet, they may get a little grumpy about it. The Ashtar and the Gremak, for example, have old conflicts. Because they're both elder races and they fought back 3,000 years ago against each other in this Great War. So they're not hugely happy if you stick them on the same planet together. Where for a lot of the native races, though, they're not yet part of that system, so they don't have many opinions of the other races they may share a planet with. But there is a morale number, and it does change depending on what sorts of things happen in the game. You sort of have to get into a bit of a war or something else before people really start worrying about one thing or another, and you know, it is a 4X game, so it'll take a while before we have serious intergalactic conflict brewing here.
And actually, we just found one of the species you were describing earlier. We got the Gaia-type planet, and there's some natives there. And this is a planet that really can support a very large population, so that's very worthwhile to colonize, actually. That's a great find. We should expand in that direction, I suppose.
Yeah, I need to put some space monsters on Gaia, because right now I think it's too great a find.
It is. it definitely provides that early. It also has a high fertility rating, so it's very good for producing food. So we could use it for that. Though I think it is also quite suited for, or at least the natives there are quite suited for technology related things as well.
Yeah, they used to be. That's changed a little bit in recent builds. Our vision for the Gaiads is really that they are trouble. So they're eco-terrorists, they don't like industry, and as wonderful a planet as Gaia is, if you colonize it and then start using it to churn out ships, you may have a bit of an insurrection problem, because Gaiads will not be happy with what you are doing to their planet. However, right now, the Gaiads don't actually have those negatives in-game, so you can get away with doing more with that planet than you really should be able to. That's one more little thing that will be tweaked over the course of EA.
And talking about the process of EA, obviously you got a number of things planned to include upon. I saw a forum post there on the Steam forums, you know, providing a short roadmap. How much room is there actually for player feedback there to influence the EA process?
I mean, if you study that list closely, you'll see that a lot of it is fairly vague. So, I mean, we say things like, we're going to improve the usability of a number of particular screens. Well, yes, that's so we'll be posting some mock-ups of what we're planning to do to improve usability, and then the features will go in, and you know, if people like the way it's working or don't, there is certainly some room for us to react. That said, of course, it's not a democracy, right? This is not game design by committee, but we have had a beta running just privately on our own servers for a year and a half now. We've gotten some really quite excellent suggestions already, which have made their way into the game. A few more that I'm waiting to act on, some clever ideas that people have had about how we can optimize one system or another.
Okay, so there's definitely, I mean, the guys, that includes, you know, the guys watching here now, those of you playing it or watching this perhaps later, we very much appreciate your feedback. So if you can go onto the forums and share your thoughts, either on this video or on your own experiences with the game, that would be very welcomed, and we definitely hope to see you and discuss the game on the forums. In the meantime, actually, I'm sending out a colonizer to the Gaia planet, and that again will expand our borders further, so that will also open up a bigger chunk of space for us to explore. And on Dirt, do we want actually a factory? No, I think I would prefer, well, let's build a factory for as well, just to be on the safe side. So I've been increasing steadily my mining production. I've also colonized another planet on my home system, actually, which is a small planet. It's an arid planet. It only supports a relatively small population and only 4 buildings. 4 improvement slots are there, but I'm gonna put mines on all of them and really, you know, use that as a resource world.
Yeah, that's very much working by design. I mean, one of the reasons that mines are so cheap is that we feel it's appropriate that you get some of those fringe worlds and you think, well, this is going to be where I'm going to do my real resource exploitation. I'm not going to do it in my capital world where all my people are living and being happy. I'm going to do it out on some little asteroid somewhere. But then, of course, if that asteroid gets captured or bombed or something else, you may be in trouble because you may lose the ability to build fleets.
Okay, so we colonized the Gaia world, so the Gaia's actually joined us now, and like you say, they're as in this version quite friendly still. So there is no chance of revolt, and there are no morale issues with this specific race. So that's good for us. That's a nice find. It already has a farm presence, so it's already producing, you know, a decent amount of food to support itself. And the guides themselves provide some research and some food, so they're good for two things really. They're not very good for production, so it's doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start building a ton of factories over here. But at least some farms and some labs might be very, very useful. Regardless, I'm going to build one factory here anyway, I think, just to speed up future development. And so I think you mentioned, Sven, that Gaia's refused to move from one colony to another, correct?
Yeah. Yep. A lot of the races that are meant to be more unruly problems that you have to deal with rather than perks for your whole empire are stuck to their race. So you can't just move them off to some little mining world somewhere if you're not happy with them. The scavengers are the same way. The scavengers were on that very nice hive world that you saw, and because they're criminals, you can't just put them on transports and say, here, go to Australia, done. They stay in their sewers, and you have to deal with them one way or another.
Right, it's a shame because I kind of like the feeling it gives me when I can just move entire populations from one planet to another, playing the bad guy essentially.
Yeah. There's if you're the Gramak and you have people who are protesting and you have enough tanks on the planet, you can enslave them. And then after you've enslaved them, they no longer have a choice, and you're able to move them around. So if you want to do that sort of evil overlord thing, the Gramak are really the race to play.
So could you... oh, hang on one second. I just found a refugee colony, and they're offering to join our mighty empire. They're humans. That's another race to join. We're really becoming a multiracial empire here, so that's kind of fun. Let's welcome them in. But could you tell us a bit about the slave mechanic? How do slaves work in game?
So basically, slaves are another population type, and they're not as productive as a full citizen. So they won't produce any research. I think they produce lower outputs of raw materials, but they'll work even when they're unhappy because they're slaves. They have no choice. Whereas a free citizen, if he starts to protest, won't work at all. So if you have people who hate you and you want to get something useful out of them, and you're evil enough to be able to make slaves, then you can turn them into slaves. And you can even use forced labor to sacrifice some of your slaves to speed up population, or to speed up the production of military ships and so on. So yes, without really having you playing a race that has slaves, there's a lot that I can't show you, but it's there. And if you run into some marauders, they may offer to sell you slaves, which, if you're playing as a more empathetic race, will make everyone in your in your empire unhappy with you because you've been playing with slave traders. But if you're playing as Gremek, they won't mind it.
So actually, I'm loading up a Gremek save right here, which also to show you guys some combat. I see we're actually running out of time quite quickly, so and I wanted to show you some combat, of course, aside from the general gameplay. But in the meantime, guys, keep asking your questions and drop them in the chat, and I'm sure we can try and get Sven to answer them as much as possible. Here you can see a bit more later game. You can see a lot of colonies are or a lot of planets are colonized. A good number of fleets are available with command cruisers, and we're quite an established empire here already. But there's one bit of combat right to the south with the Fidi, the seahorses, and they have a nice fleet consisting of a couple of troop ships and some cruisers. Now the troop ships especially are are a nice game and are easy to take out. Because they're basically just unarmed transports most of the time. And we got a couple of command cruisers, which are quite strong actually, and they got some good missile launchers, heavy railguns, defensive lasers as well to block incoming missiles or fighters, and also some assault shuttles, so they can actually be used to assault colonies rather than just bombard them. And doing that, of course, means that you can annex the colony instead of destroying it and colonizing it yourself. So that's a great way to quickly expand your empire. So we are gonna offer them battle. And we can set the auto combat, or we can just choose to attack them ourselves. We are gonna obviously do the latter now, and we're gonna show you guys some battles. So we can see we are outnumbered, but remember that 4 of them are transports and are not really that strong. So like Sven said initially, combat is done in a turn-based fashion. So each turn, the player or each side moves all its ships and gets a chance to fire all its weapons. So the enemy just took their turn, they moved up, they fired their missiles, and I'm going to move up as well and see how much damage I can do. My ships are quite well advanced. We got shields protecting the ships aside from the general armor, and like I said, we got some heavy railguns, ion cannons, Viper launchers. I think we're in a pretty good position here. So I'm going to move my ship forward.
Particularly those railguns. I need to nerf railguns. Everyone in the beta is outfitting with nothing but railguns right now, and that is a clear sign that they are too strong.
And they have a huge range as well. And you saw, just as I moved up my ship, the enemy missiles started moving as well, trying to hit me. A couple have actually made a connection, but were stopped by my shields, and some other were intercepted by my defensive weapons and the defensive weapons of my allied ship. And we're going to hit him. And we're doing a nice bit of damage. We can get our ion cannon to reach them as well. Unfortunately, our Viper launcher is still out of range. It really is a close range weapon, but one that is quite useful. Definitely on close range when you really get into it. Actually, Sven, I'm not sure if I told you this, but one of the first times I played this game, I accidentally built ships without any weapons on them, and to combat the enemy I was forced to just move them close to enemy formation and just use the auto-destruct.
It's a classic strategy, and it does work. You can just light off your nuclear reactors. There's one of the first short stories in the Man Kazin War series, I think, is about using exactly that tactic when the peaceful humans run into an unexpectedly aggressive alien. In really early builds, back in the alpha, you actually didn't start with any weapon tech as certain races. So if you were the Fidi, you really expected that there would be no one out there who would be so cruel as to want to, fire on your ship. So you had to research it reactively. We eventually bowed to gameplay practicality, though, and decided that, well, that might be realistic. Everyone who was playing would know that there was trouble coming.
So we're actually trying to take out the missiles there first before we unleash our railguns and our Viper launchers on the enemy.
So I have another question from the chat from Seller Zauber. Can a ship defend a different ship, like a flagship defending a long-range ship?
Oh yes, it can, and in fact, it will automatically. That's one of the fun features of the system, is that as missiles close on you and so on, any point defense weapons that are in range will automatically fire to cover. So if you have some escort ships that are moving along with a carrier, and you move them all forward together, the escorts will fire automatically to defend the carrier from incoming missiles. I'm rather proud of that feature.
We actually saw that happen a couple of times here during this battle, with ships intercepting missiles for the ship next to it, actually, so for their allies. So that's quite nice. You also saw the troop ship actually retreat from battle very cleverly. They knew they would be, you know, easy pickup, so they decided to retreat that. So that's a smart play on behalf of the enemy. Unfortunately for them, the Gremec designs were superior in this case, especially with the real guns. Which, guys, if you want to enjoy them, do it now, because I heard Sven is going to nerf them.
They need it.
Regardless, that was actually our short preview here of Stars in Shadow. We'll be sure to show you more, as of course the early access game or the early access process is progressing. We'll be showing more and more videos, screenshots, etc. Sven is going to keep us up to date on the Steam forums about the latest news and the latest plans and updates. And for a bit, I'm going to take you back to our lovely hosts Saskia and Honey, and for some final comments, and I think a contest as well that has to be talked about. So let's go back to there.
Alright, so we're back. So guys, yeah, we had a contest running as well, and the time has come to announce the winners of these contests. And well, first, for people who do not know what the contest was, Bart, can you show them the image, please? So we put up an image on social media of the Fidi race scientist, and we put a question mark in the text bubble, and we asked you guys if you could come up with a fun or creative or whatever caption. We would actually take them all together and we would vote for the best ones, and we decided on 3 winners. So yeah, these 3 winners, we have chosen them, and they will receive a Steam key for the game. Hopefully today. We're gonna try and be very quick. So yeah, without further ado, first winner. Bart can, yeah, you can, is, and I can't see the quote from here, unfortunately, so maybe Bart won. Oh, there we go. BitGamerX, and it's very nice because you are actually here, so remember to whisper me on Twitch so I can pass on the key for you. So he came up with this lovely quote saying, "Hold your seahorses while I'll analyze this data." And we all thought that this was really funny, yeah, and a very good pun. So congratulations to you, BitGamer. Please whisper me here on Twitch. If you don't, I'm gonna try to get in touch with you in another way. So yeah. Alright, without further ado, our second winner is...
Yes, I hope I will pronounce it right, forgive me if I don't. It's Mark Darwin Buentipo. And he came up with, "I'm not really sure what this button is for, but every action creates a certain reaction. And then press self-destruct." I found this really,
that was actually
really
her favorite. So,
yeah,
it's really good.
Totally cracked up.
Yeah, we all loved that one. So Mark, if you're here, please whisper me as well. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep in touch with you on Facebook, because that's where you entered. And then last but not least, the third winner is Mr. Incognito, and he said, "Sorry, I have to leave. My husband is about to give birth," which is also a very good one, because, you know, seahorses. Do I need to say more? So yeah, congratulations to you guys. Please contact me, or I will contact you, and we will get those keys to you ASAP.
Yes. Well, I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah.
Wrap it up? Yeah.
Wrap it up.
Well, we had fun and we hope you guys do. Before we wrap it up, Sven, do you have anything else to share with us or the community?
Yeah, do you have some final words, final remarks? You want anything to say? They're listening now, so you can grab that chance to, you know, say something before we wrap it up.
Oh, no, I have nothing prepared. I don't know what to say.
Oh. Well,
yeah,
no, that.
I mean, I hope you like the game, those of you who try it, certainly.
All right, well, if that's it, then Stars and Shadow is out now on Steam Early Access. It's now for a 20% discount, a launch discount, so, you know, get that game, grab it now. It's $19.99 at the moment. I guess that's it. I hope you guys enjoy, and we love to see you next time on our channel. I hope you had a good time, and have a nice day.
Yes, thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.